All right. So you have the 1 star. Let's hear the opposite side of this.
All right. So this is an interesting circumstance. I do want to, before I begin, I want to share that this review was written 3 years ago.
Okay.
But they have updated the review
Okay.
2 years ago. And for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to get into it. But the update is written by, they use the word partner, who has condensed the experience and just tells their point of view again, why it's a 1 star.
So we're going to hear the OG.
Original.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is under the account named Keegan C. It is a 1 star review for UCLA Health, BirthPlace Westwood.
All right, let's hear it.
Here we go. It cannot be understated how nightmarish my experience giving birth here was. I came in to be induced after specifically asking my OB to schedule me on a day when they were least busy. She clearly didn't bother doing that, since the day I came in, they were over capacity. The doctor came in and asked me if I wanted to come back a different day. I said my OB had scheduled me for 12/12 and asked if they were, quote, too busy right now to do my induction. She assured me that no, it, quote, how busy we are won't affect the care you receive, end quote. This turned out to be complete BS. So they put me in a dingy little waiting room. This place advertises itself as having beautiful birthing rooms with soft lighting, tubs, etc. I never saw a room like that in my entire time here. I ended up being shunted from dingy waiting room to dingy waiting room for the entire time I was there. I almost gave birth in a dirty little waiting room. See my story below. After arriving for my scheduled induction at noon on 12/12, I was finally given a misoprostol pill vaginally at 3:30 p.m. I was dilated to 2 centimeters already beforehand and 60% effaced. 5 hours later, I was 3 centimeters and 80% effaced. So I had responded to the pill quite well. They inserted a second misoprostol around 8 p.m. By 11 p.m., I was having quite painful contractions and asked about my epidural. They assured me I would be able to get one. One of the nurses suggested to the other that I should be moved to the actual labor and delivery area, parentheses, and out of the overflow waiting area. The other nurse, Caroline, said they were, quote, too full. So they left me there for another hour while I had painful contractions. They could not give me an epidural until I was actually moved to labor and delivery. Finally, around midnight, they came back and moved me to another waiting room, but at least this time, this one was in the labor and delivery area, so they would at least be able to start the epidural. By this point, my contractions were already 2 to 3 minutes apart and lasting for 60 seconds. They had not checked my cervix at all since they gave me that second misoprostol at 8 p.m. So they had no idea how I was progressing and just guessed that it would still be a while before I actually gave birth. How wrong they were. I sat through contractions every 2 minutes while they threaded the catheter for the epidural. Warned that I could not move at all, this was excruciating. By this time, it was 1 a.m. The walking epidural I received simply did nothing. Meanwhile, my contractions were getting stronger and stronger. I was feeling pressure in my rectum. I had the distinct feeling the baby was coming. They had me hooked up to the TOCO, contraction monitor, and even though I was yelling out loudly in pain every 2 minutes because the machine was not picking up the contractions, they assumed I wasn't having them. This is the truly unforgivable part. I told them the baby was coming, and so did my birth partner. Parentheses, my stepmother, a NICU nurse. My stepmom went out and told them, quote, "Hey, her contractions are less than 1 minute apart and lasting 1 minute. I think the baby is coming," end quote. The nurses at the nursing station, parentheses, who had still not bothered to actually check my cervix, told her, quote, "We're not picking it up on the machine," end quote. They essentially didn't believe I was having contractions. I was screaming in pain for exactly a minute, every other minute. Parentheses, like, "Yeah, a-holes, I'm faking it," 3 question marks. In the waiting room with my stepmom without nurses bothering to check me for the last 2 hours. Finally, my water broke. I thought I'd pissed myself, so I said, quote, "I pissed myself." Finally, the nurse came in to change the pad underneath me. She lifted my gown and was like, "Oh, that's the baby's head." It's like, "Yeah, bitch, I've been giving birth in here alone this whole time, and you a-holes just didn't effing believe me." At that point, they finally moved me to what seemed like basically an operating room while the head was emerging. And the baby was born 7 minutes later at 2:27 p.m. on 12/13. I get that my labor was unusually fast, but these horrible nurses just didn't believe me that I was having contractions. And worst still, didn't bother to check. I was still never checked between the time I'd been 3 centimeters and when I actually gave birth. I've moved all my care to a different hospital. Stay away from this place. It treats patients as cash cows, and the nurses couldn't give a FK less about you. I will not be delivering my future babies here. This place is a factory of nightmares.
Wow.
I mean,
Keegan.
It's a lengthy review, but I felt like it's very worth it because it's incredibly detailed and how excruciating this experience was for Keegan.
I mean, nightmarish is right. I mean, listen, I sometimes feel a certain kind of way about a review that has a prologue, which this clearly did.
Yeah.
But it really set the tone for what we were about to receive, because I had written down the word nightmarish because I just, even though I felt bad, I'm like, I love that as an adjective. Mm-hmm. And then as we were going through the experience, I was like, this is a nightmare. That is a nightmare. Like, this entire experience was a nightmare. I mean, wow. So many things are upsetting about this. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly.
Yeah.
We arrive there because our OBGYN, which I wish we would have mentioned by name because that would have been helpful to know when comparing the two, if that makes a difference or not.
Very good point.
Our OBGYN is we know that we have to be induced, so we make this appointment. We specifically request, like a queen, that we're there during a time where it's less busy. We get there and it is busy, but we're kind of told it's going to be fine. You're going to receive the same level of care. And then we start getting treatment in the waiting room. Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch going on here. It is sort of like, I think what's unique about the circumstance is that you were scheduled. Your induction was scheduled.
Right.
I understand that there's variables here because it is sort of like you can't know who's going to go into labor. But this is a scheduled induction.
Right.
And you recognize as Keegan that it's busy. And so you have the wherewithal to say, is it a little too busy? Because it was scheduled. So if it's overwhelming, let's pick another time.
Right.
And you're confirmed that you will not be impacted by the level of mania going on. So that's like a huge, I understand, like, what do you do as the receptionist? Are you supposed to say, like, you can't say, like, oh, you might have a better experience if you come back later. But it's also like, this is literally life and death.
Right.
So, like, don't give me a nicety. Be honest. Like, why don't we, like, let me call your OB and see if we can push you to tomorrow.
Right. I mean, yeah, that is something that I want. Like, why is the OB not on the phone? Maybe the OB is, like, delivering another baby or something. But, like, this is the point where I feel like the OB needs to be intervening, where I feel like
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Aparna really seemed like she was a huge part of this process. Where is this OB?
It seems like they weren't on shift. That's
this
what I'm
sort of reminds
getting.
me of my own birth story in a way, which I'll tell in Patreon. I mean, of me being born.
Okay.
But, okay. Why would they start inducing labor before we have a room to put you in? Like, that's the part that is, like, really confusing to me, because
Mm-hmm.
you would think when I was very confused at the point of the review. I even, like, wrote down, because they were like, it was dingy and I almost gave birth in this dingy room. And then they gave me the first, pill. And I was thinking, okay, well, certainly if they're giving her the first pill or the first dose of the medication, well, now she's in the room. I wish she would at least say, well, now that I'm in the room, it's nice. And then we circle back to, no, we're not in the room. We're being medicated in the waiting room? That just seems dangerous. Like
Correct.
that, like that's like starting, like that's like doing a campfire outside and being like, you know what? I'm just gonna start the fire inside. Why not? I'll get the flame
I'll carry
going.
the fire out. Right.
Yeah, I'll carry the fire out to the flame with me. Like, that is crazy.
Well, I do think that part of it is like bodies react differently. So I'm imagining they were like, this could take 3 hours, or this could literally take, what did it say? They like by 8 p.m.
But
like,
even so, doesn't that feel like playing with fire? Like,
yes,
especially
if they
because
are
it sounds like
overcapacity-
she wasn't dilated at all. Like, it's like if she was at zero dilation, I could maybe wrap my head around the logic a little bit, even though I still think it's crazy. I think we don't start
Agree.
the process until we are in a room. But okay, I can understand, but they're saying that she's dilated. Also, she's there with a NICU nurse. I mean, that's the other thing that, for me, I'm like, you're there with a NICU nurse. How did he
What
leave?
does that mean?
Neonatal intensive care unit. So that's for my. I only know this because like one of my best friend's staff is a neonatologist, which is the HB, the head bitch in charge for the NICU. But anyway, so this person is around, difficult and time sensitive births all the time. So I'm like wondering how we even got to this point without turning around. Like, it just seems like there were so many things along the way. The only thing I can think of is once we start this process of the inducing labor, it's like there's no turning back at that point. Now it's like we're stuck in this.
I think that's a really great point, because I didn't know what NICU stood for.
Yeah.
I think that you just literally ended this whole episode for me, because it's obviously such a horrible experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's incredibly trustworthy. I believe it. But I think the fact that like you're with your stepmom, who is the HBIC.
Right. She's not the
You wouldn't-
HBIC. She's a nurse, but still, like, you're with someone who the nurses.
Is high stress birthing.
Yes,
constantly.
the nurses in these environments are like very critical. Like, yeah, sometimes there's only one neonatologist on staff, so we really need all NICU nurses on board.
Well, but that's my point, is like so much in life is about who you know. So you bring this person with you because it's your stepmom and they do it every day, rather than, I'm assuming, the son who was the semen provider
or whoever
in this scenario or whatever.
Yeah.
Correct. It doesn't have to, like, correct. You're right.
Yeah.
You bring this person with you instead of your life partner.
Right.
So you would anticipate that would be communicated, and you would most likely get better care, because these other people at this facility are going to be aware that this person has the knowledge, so they know when you're, So like the fact that this experience occurred and you were accompanied by a NIC nurse, is that right? NICU. Like, outrageous, horrifying. The fact that the head was crowning.
Oh, God.
Also, I
Such a
think it's a
nightmare.
complete deal breaker for me. The fact that they never checked the effing monitor. Are you out of your fucking mind? Like,
Insane.
You could not only kill the baby, you could kill the mother.
Yes.
Like, are you out? And I recognize maybe they're overcapacity. They're under. It's like too many plates
Too
in
bad.
the air. Right. Too bad. That's the job.
Yeah.
Like, that is going back to my original question was then the receptionist becomes the most important person to say, unfortunately, our facility has X number of rooms. You were scheduled. We need to get your OB on the phone, and this must happen all the time. Like, I don't think this is going to be fluke. You can't predict when a baby is going to decide to go into labor. It's like, if it is scheduled and you can't accommodate it, there has to be a contingency plan.
Correct.
It is completely unacceptable.
Oh, yes. This is literally what I was worried about while we were reading Alexandra O's review is like, is Alexandra O, did she just get lucky? Did she just happen to get there on a day when it wasn't really busy and she went straight through? But this is an experience that, other people have. Because if I read this review, this would be very near a deal breaker for me, if not 100%.
Exactly. I'm wondering if Keegan got inseminated on Valentine's Day, and then 9 months later, it's the busiest time and they're all there. And maybe Alexandra O got inseminated, not on a sexy holiday.
I was thinking
there are
that.
Seasons.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Like, is this like I couldn't do the math in my head, but I was like,
yeah, I don't know what that is. But
is December, 10th, 11th, whatever this was, a popular.
But I just also conversely want to say here, like, as much as possibly Alexandra O got lucky, I'm wondering if also Keegan got unlucky. Because it is sort of like, I don't think that this is necessarily a fluke. I think it is a variable you're going to be dealing with constantly. Yeah. But, like, is that enough to deal break for me? I think I could crown this. But let's go through the points. Spelling and grammar is pretty great. It did say shunty, which I wasn't sure what that... I was shunted around. I don't know what that means.
Shunted. Like, that's a word. Shunted is like... I think it's like ignored.
Okay. So then vocabulary word for me. So and no other spelling errors at all. They did a lot of parentheticals, but they also had dashes. Like instead of doing a parenthetical, they would go dash dash and then end with a dash dash.
Okay.
I believe them. I don't think they're being shady. And also the fact that they have this NICU I don't know. No humor, but I was thoroughly entertained in the most traumatizing horror experience.
Yes.
What about you here?
I was completely swayed by this review in all the ways, I'll say.
I also, before we crown, I do want to go back to your
crown.
Before we crown.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, I do wish that they had mentioned who the OB was by name.
I do too, because I
would
think
love
that
to
there
know the
is
nurses' names.
There is
as well.
blame to be placed.
Absolutely.
There.
Absolutely.
But
as we're about to crown this, like, I don't know if that, they chose not to mention it. So, maybe that was a conscious choice because of their morals and ethics. So I don't know how. We'll see how that plays into the crowning.
Yes.
But I think I can do it. You?
I can do it. I'm crowning. Let's do it.
Oh my God. Keegan. Okay, here we go.
All right.
The queens are tabulating. Total score.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Wow. Okay, so I'm holding up 4.5 crowns again. Trey's holding up 5 crowns. Okay, great. So I did 4.5 crowns because I thought I was equally swayed by both of these reviews. And then if I was going to give Alexandra O 4.5, I had to do the same for Keegan, because as much as I felt comforted by Alexandra's review, I felt horrified by Keegan's review. And I will say the thing that I'm giving Keegan the most credit for, that like keeps sort of echoing in my mind as a review queen, is they tried to preempt this experience. When they spoke with the OBGYN, they said, I don't want to be there at a time when it's crowded. When they got there, they said, I will come back another time to be induced if it's crowded. They really saw the writing on the wall before they even went down this road. Maybe they, read the Alexandra O's and were like, all right, I just need to make sure this variable is taken care of. Exactly. And even with all that due diligence, it still was a complete and utter nightmare. And I just feel terrible for Keegan. I want to send her all the love. I hope that her daughter daughter or child. I don't know if they mentioned.
I don't know, actually. Yeah.
I hope their child is thriving and well. And if they have other, babies around, I hope they had better experiences with those births. I didn't give the 5 because, I was scared. I was not laughing at all. It was not humorous. And I don't know. That's why I didn't go for the full 5. But you went for a review queen for Keegan. So let us know why you thought that Keegan was a review queen.
I gave Keegan a review queen because I think the impact here, the image of crowning and the labor and delivery secondary waiting room, it doesn't matter. Like, that's insane. And the fact that the birthing partner, who happened to be an expert in the field,
right,
had to run and chase people down and say, like, the baby's crowning and they're ignoring you. And, like, instead of looking at the it's just too much.
Ugh.
And I appreciate the length. I hate long reviews. I think it's incredibly worth it for this experience. The preface, I agree. Maybe it could have been a paragraph shorter, but it drew me in. And then also that a year later, the partner who we now know as a NICU nurse wrote a summary. They're really trying to protect women, which I think is so review queenie, that like I gave Keegan the 5 crowns because I just think it's a horrible experience. I believe them. This is just horrifying. And so,
what a nightmare. Nightmarish is the perfect.
It's so odd
descriptor.
to give someone a review queen status and feel so upset.
Yes.
It's usually a very funny, light, but I think the impact here is so strong.
I'm very upset. I'm extremely upset about this experience for Keegan.
So
all right, Keegan,
are.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you both for sharing. As per usual with these 1 and 5-star reviews, I am thoroughly confused. I don't know. All I can say is that people have different experiences, and 3.5 feels like an adequate overall score for UCLA based on these 2 extreme reviews.
Agreed.
That are both seem, equally good, as equally good as nightmarish, and I don't know where we're falling here. So
I don't either. And it's like the 3.5 review total.
Right. Exactly.
I'm like, I have no idea,
Yeah.
Wait.
So anyway.
All right. Well,
my mother just decided to call and
was it literally her?
That was literally my mother. So there you go. Happy Mother's Day.
Baby, it's